Yeah.
You want to jump all the way to the end? Why do we want to jump to the end?
Because that's not Boba Fett.
How so? What makes you say that?
Boba Fett is dead. He was eaten by the Sarlacc.
Okay. So what's your theory on who that is then?
I don't know. They just pulled in the guy that played Django as, I think, just fan service. He's going to play someone relevant, but it's not Boba.
Maybe he's another clone?
Possibly.
Because, I mean, it's the same actor.
Right. It's the same actor, but it's not Boba Fett. Boba Fett is dead. There's no canon story that Boba Fett is alive.
No.
So unless they're going to somehow make this that it was him and he somehow survived being eaten by the stupid Sarlacc thing, because the whole reason that his armor was found was because the Sarlacc spit it out because it couldn't digest the Beskar.
Okay. But you don't think that would have saved him? Because, I mean, he wore it, so...
No, but it doesn't cover his entire body.
True.
It's not an entire all-in-one sealed suit of armor.
Okay.
So if he's being digested by this acid or whatever, that's gonna get to him and destroy his body, and then the thing's gonna just spit out his armor because the armor couldn't be digested.
Okay.
But I mean, and maybe I'm wrong. I could be, but I think everything I'm reading is like, well, we know it's, but when we don't know it's Boba.
Yeah, no.
Everything up until this point says Boba Fett is dead. It's only in the extended universe Legends stories that he somehow survived. Nothing canon says Boba Fett survived.
What I think would be cool, and I mean, I'm probably like 50%. They're probably just going to go, oh, it's Boba. But
I think that's too easy. I don't think.
Well, yeah, it's too easy.
In the Mandalorian.
I think what they could do is tie it back in to Clone Wars with what's his face? The clone that survived with Ahsoka.
Rex.
Could be Rex.
It could be. I mean, Rex would probably be a little bit older than that at this point.
He looks like he's in his 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, but they also have weird aging things. I think that's what's going to set it. This is obviously the next step is going to be finding out who this is, and he's going to set them on the path towards finding, the child's people, Jedi or his actual race. And it's going to be, hey, well, there was this girl, Ahsoka, who trained as a Jedi. Go find her. And I think that very well could be what it is. Because I do like your idea that it's not Boba. And I think it would be nice if they went a different direction. But that's the only thing I could come up with. Because I was like, well, what if it is Rex? Because that'd be pretty cool. They already established that he survived up until, I mean, it's headcanon, but Return of the Jedi.
Huh.
Because,
maybe I'm looking at Wikipedia right now,
mm-hmm.
and they are saying that is Boba Fett.
Well,
that's under the canon thing. Like, it's saying that, yeah, he somehow survived the Sarlacc pit. That just seems way too freaking easy to me.
Well, who's the Wikipedia people? Like, they're just fans. It's not like they actually have insider information, right?
No, one of the guys that I think works and does all that stuff, like,
as an inside track.
Well, they had him on. They had one of the guys that runs. He works with fandom.
Mm-hmm.
But he does like all the Star Wars stuff, so like he updates a lot of the Wikipedia, I think is what I remember.
Okay.
When they had him on Star Wars and Scotch. I know we probably shouldn't say the name of another podcast while we're recording our little thing, but
that's fine. We're small.
They had him on there, and so like a lot of that stuff, like if it's in there, listed in there as canon, like it's
well, let's read what their little. Well, okay, so that's still to be determined.
It just says, that he whatever.
I mean, just tumbling into the pit of Carcoon, and then after the Sarlacc at some point is acquired by Jawa, the Jawa is traded to Cobb Vanth. So yeah, it's just, again.
No, but it says tumble into the Manning Sarlacc pit. However, Fett survived the encounter and continued to live on Tatooine years after the incident.
Okay.
So I guess it is him. I don't like that. It's
too on the nose.
Yeah, it's just too easy to be like, oh, but again, I guess it's to a certain extent, it's fan service, but I'm also like, you're bringing this guy in who isn't really a Mandalorian.
Mm-mm.
And it's like, I don't know. I feel like the show is meant to be about the Mandalorian and the child. And
For sure.
I don't have problems with some of the other people like coming into it. It's basically, I mean, it's not confirmed, but it's a pretty good chance that, you know, adult Ahsoka may show up at some point in whatever capacity.
Yep.
But they're not supposed to be the antagonist or protagonist of the story. Like, it's called The Mandalorian for a reason. It's his story.
Well, as long as they keep it pretty light.
Like, bringing Fett into it is either just fan service to make some people happy to say, oh, he's not actually dead. But it's like, if he ends up becoming like a recurring character, it's like, ugh, I don't know. I don't understand everybody's fascination with Boba Fett. And I think it was just because he was the only one in that kind of armor, like, early on.
Probably.
And so everyone was like, oh, that's so cool. And not a lot was known about Mandalorians then. But now it's like, now that we know, it's like, well, he wasn't really a Mandalorian.
And I really doubt that he's going to turn into any kind of recurring character like a Moff Gideon, or it's going to be he's a step in the path to returning the child. It's not like, if they suddenly have him suit up again and he battles alongside Mando, then yeah, that's a really bad step. And I really doubt they're going to do it.
Considering that Mando has his armor, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the next episode. I mean, we should really have some ideas by then. I can't imagine he would leave Tatooine and be like, okay, we'll come back to that in like 4 episodes. I imagine the next episode will have answers for that. But when they first announced, you know, that the actor had a part, I was like, well, maybe it'll just be a flashback. Maybe it'll just be, you know, something quick, a stepping stone. It's not going to be something that, you know, it's not going to replace Mando. It's not going to be, if he's in there more than just the next episode, I'd honestly be shocked.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't see him somehow like teaming up with like with them for some reason and becoming part of the group. That would, I don't know, that would be weird.
Especially with how ragged and destroyed his armor was, and I'm sure to him, like, he's just a loner, as he's always been. So why would he join Mando all of a sudden after however many years he's been, you know, just lone wolf in it? So I'm sure it'll just be the next one will be called Boba or Fett or something, like the next episode, and then it'll just be, you know, them talking, telling him, you know, about his father Jango, probably getting some backstory with all of that, and giving him a chance to better understand. Because I mean, it seems like, I know at this point clones are all gone, but there might be some kind of tie-in with like current day stormtroopers and who's left over. And I mean, they can go a couple different directions with it, besides just, okay, here's where the child goes, here's, you know, here's people you can talk to about where he comes from. I'm sure there'll be some kind of little story that they do with him. So I'm still looking forward to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. I don't know. I don't know. It's still just,
yeah. What'd you think of the Krayt Dragon?
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Did you get the
sandworm?
Yeah, it was kind of creepy at first. I thought it was going to be an actually mobile Sarlacc, and I was like, no, please don't change what that is. And then it became that, and I actually had to look it up.
No, it's basically like their version of Dune's sandworm.
Yeah. The pearl at the end that they hold up
must flow.
There's a bunch of different things I read about it, but the only thing that's really quote unquote canon is that that's something you get as loot when in Star Wars: The Old Republic, because you actually can fight Krayt Dragons. And
that's cool.
There's tons of different legends. Nothing, official canon that they could really work with now, but they had like it could be harnessed to power a lightsaber and all kinds of random things. I really doubt they would do anything like that. It's probably just a little like, hey, look at how big this pearl is that you get as loot in other games. That probably just helped to show how long it had been alive and how old it was, because it did say something like the bigger that it was, the older the Krayt Dragon was, and that thing was pretty massive that the Tusken Raiders held up.
Yeah.
I mean, Baby Yoda seemed pretty. There was a couple
it was so
moments.
funny in the first part of that when they're in like the cantina and like the whole town starts like shaking and all that. Like Steph and I both were like, "Oh my god, he better jump into that pot." And then sure enough, like you turn around, the pot stops moving, and you see him poke his head up out of it.
And you're like, ew. The implied is that it's probably a spittoon, but I'm sure it's probably just completely clean, and it's not a very traveled bar, so it's still kind of like, ew. Yeah, I mean, good first episode.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot going on. It was good to, it was definitely nice to get back in. I'm excited for episode 2. I definitely want to see like more of like where they're headed. It was neat to kind of see another look into the Tusken Raiders too.
Yeah, where like you actually have a language.
Like and you got to see them more than just the crazy sand people that they're portrayed as, and everything else. And like any other time they show up in a movie or something like that, they're always just like, yeah, it's what they do, hence why they're called Raiders. But you kind of get this feeling that they're like, we were here before anyone else, and then all you other people come in, and then somehow we're the bad guys.
Yeah, like that was one thing I was talking about with someone about how they kind of blur the line between quote unquote good and bad. In all the previous ones, it didn't matter if it was Anakin, Luke, whoever, anyone that had any kind of experience with the Tusken Raiders is like, oh, they're just savages, they're just whatever. And with Mando, it's just like he knows their language, he's able to talk with them, and he's able to actually maybe just kind of get something out of them that benefits them. Probably using them, not like you would expect someone from the Empire or a Sith to do, but he kind of beats to his own drum and plays by his own rules of, look, I can get these people to help us, and it's beneficial to both of us. And he doesn't hate them for it. Like, he's not like he's like, oh, let's get these guys killed, but it's like they can help us, we can get something from them, don't just try and kill them, come on, let's work together. And I really thought that was pretty cool. It
was a whole different side to him, which was just neat. And then a lot of this episode felt a lot like Dune. Like there's a lot that goes on Tatooine at this point that is, you're very much like, that's like the like the Tusken Raiders are very much, they come off as the I don't want to say sand people, they don't call them sand people, they're technically, I guess, Fremen or Fremen in Dune. And you get that vibe from here where it's like, they're even down to the fact that when they're like marching to not only like the town, but to the like the Krayt Dragon's lair, or whatever you want to call it, like they all were walking in single file,
just like they said in the original, march single file to hide their numbers.
Which is exactly what they do in Dune as well.
It'll be curious to see.
Not saying that they stole it. It was just neat because it was like, it's just another aspect of like, oh, the thought process there is is almost identical. It's really cool.
It'll be curious to see if they. I know they didn't with the Star Wars gallery thing they had on Disney Plus. That it wasn't about specific episodes, but they definitely did give you like an introduction to each person, and then kind of did their own thing with each episode of discussing different things. It would be interesting to see, because this episode definitely felt different, I guess, with them bringing everything back. They wanted to kind of have a marquee episode, because I mean, it definitely felt different than their others, and I kind of hope that they touch on it somewhere, whether it's with gallery or something else, as to who did it. I mean, I'm sure you can look up who did it, but just their thought process behind it, and kind of what made them decide to go the direction they did with reintroducing Boba and the Tusken Raiders and all that kind of stuff. How they
yeah, it was kind of odd to be like, why are we back on Tatooine?
Yeah, like when he said Tatooine, I'm like, okay, well, they're going back, to try and tie in Boba, I'm sure. And then they showed his armor, and it's like, okay, well, once the story started progressing, it's like, well, yeah, we're just kind of back on Tatooine. But they did a really good job with it. I was entertained.
Well, yeah. Well, and the whole point is, and they kind of cleared up like what, because like a lot of the speculation from last season was whether or not the armorer told Mando to take the child back to his species or to the Jedi.
Yeah.
And it was because it was kind of, she basically said, well, he's in your care until he either comes of age, or you can relocate him or reunite him with his kind. And then he's like, when they were talking about his force powers, she's like, well, there's stories and tales of, wizards that could use said powers that Mandalore had fought before.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody's like, oh, that means she's telling him to find the Jedi. And I'm like, no, I don't. I agree with most people that I guess that's one pathway, but that's not necessarily. I don't think that's exactly what she meant. But then in this one, he says, I need to find other Mandalorians because they might be able to point me in the direction of finding either said, Jedi that could then point to the child's home world or what have you. He's just trying to get information, which that was the whole reason he ended up back on Tatooine, was because they said, oh, there's a Mandalorian that runs this town.
Yeah.
And then come to find out it's not Mandalorian. It's just a guy who found or who was able to trade for Boba's armor and became the marshal of the town.
And I kind of like how they did that, where it's almost like a game of intergalactic telephone, where it's like, just because there's a guy that has the armor, anyone that's heard of at least this town, it's being protected by a Mandalorian. Or just that there is a Mandalorian on Tatooine. Now, the guy that he ended up killing to get the information very well could have just assumed that it was a bounty hunter and not, the marshal of the town. But it's just funny how that kind of works outwards, where they know there might be one there. At least there's someone that's sporting his armor, but that's really all they know.
That's all they know.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I will say the one thing that kind of bothered me, I was just reading it again, with the marshal, how he was able to, when he was having his flashback on when he got the armor, came back and liberated his town, how he was able to actually use the rocket launcher on his back pretty seamlessly, as if he was like given a user manual for the armor. I almost feel like they should have had him try to use it and maybe mess it up or something. But it was a little too convenient for me for him to be like, okay, and the little visor part flips down. It does the same target lock that it did in the original trilogy, which I liked. You assumed it's the same, kind of computer system that they use in the X-Wings and whatnot, just, whatever targeting system, and that, he shoots the rocket and actually accomplishes what he was trying to do, instead of, like most people, it probably would have just gone way off course or not been able to lock on or something else. But I remember saying that when it happened. I was like, he got trained before he came back. Okay.
Well, the biggest thing about it too, though, is it doesn't necessarily tell you when he came back.
True.
So while he was making his way back to the town, was he practicing and training and all of that with it and trying to figure out how to make it work?
He very well, because
a lot of it too is once you figure out how to make the locking system work, all you gotta do is figure out how to fire it.
Yeah, you just push a button.
And if it's literally basically one button that, the screen or the visor flips down, and then it's like, oh, whatever you're looking at, it locks onto that, and then you have, maybe there's a button that lights up on the wrist thing, or who knows. But I'm with you. It is kind of funny how it's like he seemingly immediately knew how to use all of it. But you never know. I mean, at the same time, who knows how long the Jawas had the armor, and maybe they did figure out how to use it to an extent.
That's true.
Just with their own knowledge stuff. I mean, like I said, it's definitely odd, but it's one of those things of I'm like, it's just because they only, yes, granted, it's a show. You could take that time, but again, it's not a Cobb Vanth story where we're worried about how he figured out how to use the armor and all that. It's Mando and the child. So we just need to know, this is how he got the armor. Okay, he used it to liberate the town, and he's since used it to protect the town. Now Mando needs to take it back because he's not, he has the right to do so.
Yeah. I was also kind of hoping after they showed that he wouldn't have another rocket. Like, he used the one, and it's like, okay, well, now I'm out. Because then the very next scene is them going and finding the Krayt Dragon, and it's like, oh, okay, well, he has another rocket now. Darn. I was really hoping he wouldn't.
Look at all the explosives they had in the town.
Yeah.
It's a mining town, so I guess they can either rig up something that's a rocket that fits in there or something.
Yeah, for sure. It didn't bother me that much. It was just like, it'd be kind of neat if he didn't have it anymore.
Yeah, he only had the one, but nope, he's got another one magically.
And no, he did end up using it, I think, once in the battle. So it wasn't a huge wasted opportunity for some comedic value. Yeah.
It is just, I don't know. It's just, it was kind of funny. And I do like their little standoff in the cantina. This is very much a Western
when he walked
right
in.
there. When he walks in, and then Mando's like, don't make me take the armor off of you.
Did you?
Like, oh, man.
Yeah. Did you notice the speeder bike that Vanth had?
Yes.
The pod racer.
That was a pod racer. I'm pretty sure that was one of Anakin's pod. One of his pods from his pod racer.
That's exactly what it was. I love that.
You also recognized R5.
Yeah, they made sure to have it just in the shot with the little bit of ash or whatever that would be that would come out of the top.
This one's got a bad motivator.
Yeah. Just that one spot where it had blown up, and it's like, oh, okay, they bought it from the same Jawas.
Oh yeah, 100. When I saw the unit, I was like, well, I know obviously they made other astromechs that looked like that unit. He's not the only one that looks that way. But I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the R unit that they tried buying. And then as soon as they showed the back end of it and you saw all the oil and grease around that, I was like, oh my god, it is. I was like, that totally is the same R unit that I paused the show and was like yelling at Steph. I was like, that's R5. I was like, that's the R unit that they tried to they originally bought from the Jawas, and he had a bad motivator. Uncle Owen, that's R unit. It's got a bad motivator.
That is fantastic. They're also making a correlation between when Mando hits Vanth to when he's having the Krayt Dragon come at him and the Big Bantha, kind of like what they do in Return of the Jedi.
The rocket.
He smacks the rocket and it sends him flying.
Yeah,
that is just the same as what happened in Return of the Jedi with Han.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I'm hoping all the future episodes are as long as this one. I liked the length of this one.
Yeah.
It didn't feel too long. But
especially if they don't have to establish a very deep story with the episode, they could probably stand to make it a little bit less. If they don't have to have thing attacks down.
Ones, you figure all the other ones were only. All last season, the first season, every episode was only like 35 minutes long.
Was even the episode with the ATST that was attacking the town, wasn't that kind of long too?
I don't think so.
Pull up the episodes now. It's just I feel like when there's a more action-packed episode, let's say, they give it a little more justice, give it a little more time. Because, yeah, season 1, Sanctuary, it was more than average. It was 42 minutes for that episode.
Oh, okay.
The Prisoner, the one where they attack the ship that had all the convicts and stuff in it, that was 44 minutes. And then the season finale was 49. So, yeah. It seems like the average, if they're just doing story, is between 30 and 35 minutes. But yeah, I did like a little bit longer, 55 minutes for this one.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, you know, the next episodes may not be the same length. They might be 10 minutes shorter and all that. But I do like the length of. I do like the length of this episode.
For sure, it's good to give it a bit of breathing room.
Yeah.
But we'll see what they do with the next episode. I mean, if it's just talking and flashbacks with Boba and basically send him on his way, we'll see how long they decide to make that.
Yeah.